After watching Clayton Kershaw give up back-to-back home runs and the NLDS against the Washington Nationals, I thought to myself, is this guy ever going to win a World Series? And then that thought made me think about all the other players in Major League Baseball history that never even made the playoffs, and some of them never even sniffed the playoffs. What's going on, guys? It's Fuzzy. Welcome back to yet another Major League Baseball video. Today, because it is the playoffs, we will be doing a playoff video. We will be going through the history books of baseball, and we will be trying to find the best players that never won a World Series. And like I said before, some of these Hall of Fame players never even made the playoffs, which actually, when I was doing this research, that made my jaw drop. If you guys want to see more postseason style videos, make sure that you leave a like and subscribe because we post baseball every single day. If you're going to any playoff games, make sure that you use code Fuzzy on SeatGeek to save $20 because I know that playoff games get pretty expensive, so do not forget, use code Fuzzy. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. These are the greatest baseball players in history to never win a World Series. Let's do it. We are going to kickstart the video with a bang because the first player on our list that never won a World Series championship is Barry Bonds in 2004. I need you guys to actually process this. In 2004, Barry Bonds had a .609 on-base percentage and a .1422 OPS. That is godlike. I don't even think Hercules could put up those numbers if he played Major League Baseball. Now, I am going to put an asterisk by that because a lot of you guys watching right now are saying Barry Bonds took steroids. He doesn't deserve to be in the GOAT conversation. I get that. But 2 years prior, in the 2002 World Series, Barry Bonds hit 4 home runs against the Angels. Now, ultimately, he did lose, but I'm going to go ahead and show this clip because Tim Salmon said this was the furthest home run he's ever seen hit. Mike Piazza leads all of catchers with 427 career home runs. He also ended his career with 1,300 RBIs and a .308 lifetime batting average. So you would think that if he goes to the playoffs, he's going to get even better. Unfortunately, in the 2000 World Series, he did have 2 home runs, but overall, in 32 postseason games, Mike Piazza had a .242 batting average and 15 RBI, so he was kind of productive. They just could not get it done in the postseason, whether it was because their team wasn't that great or their batting average dipped and they weren't as productive. So really, it's just crazy to say that one of the best power hitters of all time and one of the best power catchers of all time, they did not win any World Series. And the same goes for the next guy, which also blew my mind, Ty Cobb, with a .366 lifetime batting average and a whopping 1,400 base hits, never had a World Series championship. I don't get that. In 17 playoff games and in 3 straight World Series, Ty Cobb hit .262. So when you go from a lifetime batting average of .366 to .262, a lot of people would say that that's choking. Maybe he pulled a Kershaw as a hitter. I don't really know what to say about this because it happened so long ago, but if anything, you have to be an excellent team. You cannot be a one-man show. You can't pull a Michael Jordan in the playoffs, or you can't pull a Tom Brady or Eli Manning in the Super Bowl. You have to come together and play excellent team baseball, otherwise you're not going to win. Ernie Banks is one of the best players in baseball history. He was the first player in the National League to win back-to-back MVPs. He ended his career as an 11-time All-Star, and when it was all said and done, he was a Hall of Famer. And after hitting 512 home runs throughout his career and having over 1,600 RBI, this guy never made the playoffs. Yes, you heard that right. Ernie Banks, one of the greatest players of all time, never even sniffed the postseason. And again, just like a lot of the players on this list, that blew my mind. There's a few more players on this list that did not make the postseason, but we're going to talk about them in just a second, so make sure you guys keep on watching. But this next player, wow, Ted Williams spent 3 seasons in World War II and still managed to have 521 home runs, 1,800 RBIs, a lifetime .344 batting average. So if he does not go to war because he was the first professional player in sports to actually sign up for the war, I think he would have had 600 plus home runs and 3,000 hits. Now, if we talk about the playoffs, because we know he was a stud in the regular season, in his lone World Series appearance, he only hit 225 World Series at-bats with 1 RBI. The closest player that I can relate that to in terms of today's game is Cody Bellinger, because Cody Bellinger, the 2018 playoffs, hit .063. So sometimes it's just the pressure amounts and you're not as good as you were in the regular season. Now, I'm not really sure if you can have that same argument for our next player, Ken Griffey Jr., because we'll talk about his postseason stats. He was actually pretty solid, but over the course of his career, this guy from 1990 to 2000 had 422 home runs. He also chipped in 157 stolen bases with 10 straight gold gloves. He was an MVP, a 13-time All-Star. All-Star Game MVP. He won the Home Run Derby 3 times, and then if we go to his playoff stats, he hit .290 with 6 home runs and 11 RBIs in 18 games, so he was a much better player in the postseason than even Ted Williams, but the fact that his team was never that great, unfortunately, Ken Griffey Jr., just like all the other guys that we've talked about, retired, not a winner. The next 3 players I am going to group together together because they are some of the most prolific power hitters in Major League Baseball history. We have Frank Thomas, Willie Mccovey, and Harmon Killebrew. You would think that between all of these guys with almost 2,000 home runs that they would have one World Series ring between the three of them. But of course, as you have seen throughout the video, we know that these three guys, unfortunately, all the home runs didn't really mean much. Frank Thomas proved just how much of a team game baseball is because he had 521 home runs, a lifetime .301 batting average, and a .974 OPS, yet he only managed to hit .224 with 5 RBIs in 16 postseason games. So you have to have a good pitching staff, you have to have a good bullpen, you have to have a great lineup, because if you don't, you're going to end up like Frank Thomas and our next player, Willie Mccovey, who was a Rookie of the Year and MVP. He too had 521 home runs. He had 310 with 3 home runs and 7 RBIs between the 1962 World Series and the 1971 NLCS, so he was really good in the postseason, kind of opposite of Frank Thomas. But either way, these guys are just like Ken Griffey Jr., Barry Bonds, and Ted Williams, not winning any World Series. And just to cap it off, because I did want to talk about Harmon Killebrew, he was an 11-time All-Star. He had 573 home runs, yet in 13 postseason games, he only managed to hit .250 and never won a World Series. So now we're going to go ahead and get into the contact hitters, Tony Gwynn and Carew, because it's crazy to say, I've said this so many times in this video, my jaw continues to drop, that these guys who are Hall of Famers never won a ring. It's just crazy to me. Tony Gwynn was a 15-time All-Star. He was a Gold Glover. He had a .338 lifetime batting average, and he is considered one of the best pure hitters in Major League Baseball history. He actually made the World Series 3 times with another teammate of his, Trevor Hoffman. He's going to be brought up in this video as well, but he was never able to capture that elusive World Series ring. He hit .308 with 11 RBIs in 27 postseason games, so he wasn't bad at all. It's just his team, it couldn't amount to it. Another player that is considered one of the greatest contact hitters of all time is Carew. He is part of that 3,000 hit club. He also chipped in 350 plus stolen bases with a lifetime batting average of .328. He was an MVP, an 18-time All-Star. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame. He hit .220 in 14 postseason games with more strikeouts than walks. He did not have more strikeouts than walks in 13 straight seasons to end his career, but as soon as the postseason starts, he turns into half of the hitter that he is in the regular season. What do you guys think happens to these guys? Do you think it's all mental, or do you think it's just they're not as good because they're going up against better competition? Because we talked about Tony Gwynn and Carew, I'm going to go ahead and bring up Ichiro real quick because he's part of the 4,000 hits club if you factor in his Japanese stats. He has a record 262 hits in one single season back in 2004. This guy hit .346 with an .836 OPS in 19 postseason games, so I would say that he was great, but considering he's in this video, we know that his team was not as good as him, resulting in a whopping 0 World Series rings. A few minutes ago, I talked about how Ernie Banks was one of the few players in my mind that are legends of baseball that never even made the World Series. Now we're to the point of the video where we're going to finish that conversation. The next 3 guys, I'm sure that you've all heard of at least one of them. We have Ralph Kiner, Knapp, Lajwe, I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name. It's spelled really different. And also Fergie Jenkins. Ralph Kiner was a 6-time All-Star. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame from 1946 to 1952. He averaged playing in 151 games with 42 home runs, 110 walks to only 75 strikeouts, and an insane .976 OPS. And again, he never made the playoffs. Same goes for Knapp Lajwe, who won the Triple Crown back in 1901. That was such a long time ago, my gosh. He's a member of the 3,000 hit club with over 3,200 hits. He has almost 400 solo bases as well, so he is one of the most underrated second basemen, because I'm going to be honest with you, I think he suffers from the same fate as Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't even know how to say his last name, but a lot of people don't put him in the conversation for one of the better players because they can't say his last name, and it's just kind of a fact. And then last but not least, from the players that never sniffed the playoffs, we have Fergie Jenkins, who won the Cy Young back in 1971. He also won 20 plus games in 6 consecutive seasons. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame back in 1991, and just like his fellow comrades who came before him in this video, never made the playoffs. Really sad. When I say the name Carl Yastrzemski, you're probably thinking this guy won a multitude of World Series because he was awesome and he played for the Boston Red Sox. He was an MVP, he was an 18-time All-Star, an All-Star Game MVP, a 7-time Gold Glove winner, a Triple Crown guy. He's in the Hall of Fame. He was also a monster in the playoffs with a .369 batting average, 4 home runs, and a 1,047 OPS in 17 postseason games. I mean, if you're watching this right now and you are are a freak athlete and you're a really good quarterback or a basketball player, just go do that, because you have a better chance of carrying your team as opposed to someone like Carl Yastrzemski, who goes off as a monster. How does Carl Yastrzemski not have a World Series ring? Before Mariano Rivera became Mariano Rivera, Trevor Hoffman was the talk of the town. He was the leader in saves with 601, obviously, before Mariano Rivera became himself. He was a 7-time All-Star, and also he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. In the 1998 World Series, he gave up 2 earned runs in 2 innings pitched as the Yankees swept them. So because he played on the same team as Tony Gwynn, obviously we know that they were not able to come together and get that chip. It's really just sad to see because these guys are all legends. The next 2 guys I want to talk about, I will be grouping them together because they spent the majority of their career playing side by side. We have Craig Biggio and Jeff Bagwell, both members of the Baseball Hall of Fame. Craig Biggio has over 3,000 hits, but in 40 playoff games, Craig Biggio only managed to hit .234 and never won a ring, obviously. Same with his buddy Jeff Bagwell, who was the 1991 Rookie of the Year, the 1994 National League MVP. In 33 playoff games, I actually don't know how to process this next stat line because in 33 postseason games, Bagwell hit .226, and the one time he made the World Series, he pulled an A.J. Pollock by going 1 for 10 with 0 RBIs. So I'd have to say that Jeff Bagwell might be the biggest choker in Major League Baseball history when we're talking about hitters. I know that some of you are going to take offense when I say something like Jeff Bagwell was a choker, but if everyone's going to hate on Clayton Kershaw, I just want us all to keep that same energy. So even though I'm a Jeff Bagwell fan, I can understand that he was not the same player when it mattered, and I'm gonna live with that, okay? That's just facts. If you've talked to any Yankees fan on Twitter, you know that the Yankees have 27 World Championships in their storied franchise history. God, talking with Yankee fans on Twitter is so mind-numbing. But if we're talking about the Yankees, the fact that they have 27 World Series championships, you would think that when they have Don Mattingly on their squad, who was an MVP in 1985, he had a lifetime batting average of .307, he won 9 Gold Gloves, and is honestly considered one of the best overall first basemen in baseball history. And then he hits .417 in the 1995 ALDS, but that was it. In 14 seasons with the Yankees, that was his lone playoff appearance. And we're talking about the Yankees and Don Mattingly. How does that happen? And to make matters worse, Don Mattingly retired in 1995. The year after, the year I was born, 1996, the New York Yankees won a World Series without Don Mattingly. That is tragic. Jeez. Andre Dawson is one of 3 players in the 400 to 300 club. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, that means that he had over 400 home runs and 300 stolen bases. So this guy was an absolute animal. He was an 8-time Gold Glove winner, and he also had one of the best arms ever. So as an athlete, this guy could have been a professional basketball player, football player, and then of course he's a Hall of Fame baseball player. So he was just a freak. In the postseason though, I think that he must have wanted to hit like me, a non-Major League Baseball player, because he hit 186 with 16 strikeouts to 3 walks in 15 postseason games. The only thing that I can say is yikes. The last 2 players I want to talk about are both middle infielders, so I wanted to group them together. We have Ryan Sandberg and Robin Yount. Ryan Sandberg was elected to the Hall of Fame back in 2005 after having an amazing career. He was a 10-time All-Star, the 1984 MVP, a 9-time Gold Glover. So if we're talking about second basemen, Ryan Sandberg has to be in the top 5. He also played well in the 1984 and 1989 NLCS, in which he hit .385 with a 1098 OPS in 10 games. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Just like his buddy Robin Yount, who was a 2-time American League MVP. Back when the Brewers were in the American League, he had 3,000 hits, almost 300 stolen bases. In the 1982 World Series, this guy exploded for a .414 batting average, a home run, and 6 RBIs, but he lost to the St. Louis Cardinals, which pretty much is going to wrap up today's video. I know that there are players that I left off this list. There's guys like Larry Walker, Todd Helton, Juan Marichal. There's a lot of guys that I could have talked about, but this video has gone on long enough. The one thing that this video shows is that if you're playing baseball, even if you're Barry Bonds or Ken Griffey Jr., you have to have a good team, so always try and pick up your teammates. Maybe try and get a sacrifice bunt down here and there or steal that extra base. Just do anything possible to give your team the best chance to win. But that's going to do it. Thank you all so much for watching. I will catch you guys tomorrow for yet another postseason video, so make sure you guys subscribe. It's going to be a banger. Catch you there.